Welcome, everyone,
Hi,
to
everybody.
another episode of Crystallizing Conversations. Today, we are exploring a very interesting topic, which is the science of smell and plant essences. And we have an amazing guest on. Iris, would you like to introduce LeeYen?
Yes, so today we have LeeYen Tan Anderson, creates sacred spaces for soul coherence, empowering people to live creatively from a loving and radiant heart. She facilitates mystical experiences globally at retreats, workshops, and classes. She is a certified aromatherapy coach and a certified raindrop technique specialist. As a board certified licensed spiritual healer, her meaningful work in the realm of spiritual frequency is based on her intimate partnership with loving celestial beings, crystal angels, sound vibrations, and plant spirits. Combining her Wayfinder life coaching training and her credentials as an emotional wisdom with essential oils coach trainer, she coaches both her clients and aspiring coaches to access the emotional wisdom that lives in their hearts in partnership with Young Living Essential Oils. Her heartfelt wish is for everyone to ground into a sense of simplicity as a way of life and to experience resilience while receiving abundance with ease and grace. What a beautiful bio.
That sounds
you. Quite a
lovely.
mouthful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And just for our listeners, how we met LeeYen was through Natured Center Coaching. We had Jen Bauer on our episode of Animal Guides. Also from her program, we had Chris Olivas on Healing Our Inner Child. So we're very excited to meet with you today, LeeYen.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
So before we get started on our topic at hand, we wanted to ask if you have a favorite crystal or one that you're currently working with.
Well, this morning I put on my blue kyanite because,
beautiful.
As I'm sitting here practicing speaking, my thoughts and my desires and my prayers and my wishes, blue kyanite truly holds that space for me. So that's what I'm working on with today.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. So, can you, before we get started on the actual topic of our sense of smell, our olfactory system, and how all that works and how that ties in with plant essences, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey and how you became interested in the field of physical and spiritual healing?
I was always attracted to smell, and I think that's an inherent attraction within most humans. And I remember my first purchase of an essential oil at a market in London, just outside of London, when I was 18 years old. And I was also really fascinated at that time. There were lots of shops coming up, like the Body Shop, and focusing on scents and potpourri. And it was always something that my heart yearned for. But what I did notice was it wasn't according to the book that I bought, which was an aromatherapy book that said it could do all these things for me. And in fact, most of what I bought went rancid pretty quickly. So it was a journey of discovery.
Interesting.
Yeah, throughout, 20, 30 years of finally really landing on a high frequency connection with plant essences. And before that, I did a lot of experimentation. But besides that, I also had trials and tribulations in my life that involved my health, my children's health, and my own emotional suffering and challenges that I went through that really brought me into the realm of healing. And most of all, it was very gradual. So when you look back in hindsight, you notice that every choice you make sort of puts you in the path. And there were moments of choices where I could have gone different ways, but life just, made it happen. And I think it is an element of trust that brought me to where I am today. But, to kind of sum it up, I started out in my career as a financial analyst. I was basically a stock analyst at an investment bank.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay.
I was
Complete
not happy.
opposite.
Complete opposite. I was following what I would call today, culture versus nature.
Mm-hmm.
Culture dictated that I went to university, pursued the most high-paying job, and get married and live happily ever after. Well, I did get married and I'm living happily ever after, but in between, I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I knew nature was always calling to me, but I was still in that headspace of being in my mind, not in my heart. And so in that space, I was dreaming up ways of saving the world. And I went back to school and did an environmental policy master's degree. And with that, I was going to craft economic policies that were mainly focused on sustainable development for the women and children of poor countries to help them rise as human beings and to honor nature at the same time. I did an internship at the United Nations Development Program in New York, and I had all these dreams of basically, if you want to look at it from a different perspective, it was to sit in an ivory tower in a beautiful building somewhere in New York, pretend I knew anything about the lives of these poor people I was trying to help, and craft economic policies that were going to save them, while trying to prove that to, a whole contingent of policy advisors and not even knowing if it would ever be implemented, and going through years and years of typing out models and then not knowing if there was going to be side effects from that. There's always going to be unintended consequences, and who's going to benefit from that? So long story short, I thought I knew what I wanted, but really the grander plan was already unfolding for me. And it was something I needed to study and go through, and to come out the other side and say, that's not what I want. This is what I want. And it's exactly the same. It is empowering women and children in developing countries. It is empowering families to have better health, to be in a space of being able to make decisions from trust and surrender and in connection with nature, and supporting the honoring and preservation and regenerating of nature while we're doing it.
I think that is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think it's so beautiful for you to have the perspective of, I thought this, I did that, and realized no. So then I tried this because this is something I think would benefit a lot of people, and realized no. And rather than getting disheartened or, still pushing, you trusted the flow, you trusted your intuition, and landed upon what you were supposed to be doing all along. I think that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. And the emphasis here is that it was laying the foundation for what I'm doing today, because I really, it was absolutely part of the whole,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you learn experiences along the way. So that's so beautiful. So in our pre-meet with you, you had explained that you're an advocate for using our sense of smell in our healing journey. Can you tell us a little bit of the science behind our sense of smell and how it affects our limbic system, our brain, our memory? I know it's very extensive, our olfactory system, I was doing a little bit of research, and apparently there's 6 to 7 million receptors around that. That's what they're estimating when it comes to our sense of smell. So it is very complicated. But if you could just give us a little bit of insight into that, we would really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think everyone can identify with the idea that when you smell something, it brings back memories. And it can be as simple as smelling something in the oven when you walk into a house and reminding you of your childhood home, or going home to your childhood home and telling your mother that, oh, that's what I want to have for dinner because that smell truly brings me back to those happy moments. So scientifically, what it's accessing is the limbic system, is directly where when we inhale something, it goes right there. So in essence, the sense of smell, the olfactory system, is the only one of 5 or 6 senses that actually bypasses our conscious mind to go right into our, what you call the limbic system, which is our ancient brain that has the codes of our memories. And it could be from ancestral memories, it could be from our childhood, it could be from before we were even born. And it is also where we are processing a lot of our emotions and our traumas without us actually consciously aware of it. So as we inhale the essential oils, there is this reaction that happens. It's almost like an electrical reaction with the chemicals and the molecules of the essential oils, which are very different from each plant. And it's not something we can really recreate in labs because there's a whole package of different compounds that make up any particular essential oil, also different when it's grown and harvested and time of season and all of that. So one lavender bottle is very different from the next lavender bottle because of the essence of time and space. So as we inhale it, there are certain molecules that vibrate at the frequency that our cells receive. And so it's sort of, the molecules are singing a song to us, and we're responding, and we're finding this coherence with it, and it is lifting us up to that coherence level. And beautiful. On another level, it is also as if these chemical compounds have a skeleton key. That skeleton key fits exactly into the receptor sites of our cells. Either way, these two reactions are triggering the blueprint of the cell. It's activating the cell to almost run its program, its original programming. And so as we inhale it, that's happening. And we are finding ourselves feeling a little lighter, feeling a little less agitated, feeling maybe even more clarity. And these are just sensations that we can actually maybe quantify. But there's lots of other processes that are going on that is beneath our conscious mind. And over time, we start to see that we are finding more balance and harmony in our everyday responses and reactions to life. So I could go a little deeper where we can talk about the main components of essential oils are the terpenes and the phenols. So we can look at 3 different molecules that are the most often that come up in our investigation of essential oil compounds. And those are monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes, and phenols. So in one of my blog posts, which you can go read on my website, I talk a little bit about the phenols being like the maiden warriors. So that's an easy way of understanding that these are very active and very fierce. And the maiden warriors of the phenols are then clearing out your receptor sites of all the unwanted toxins. So these can be spiritual, it can be emotional, they can be physical toxins, and helps to balance the microbiome within our body. One of the fascinating research we have is that, as you know, and may already realize, the intelligence of plants and plant spirits, and as embodied in the essential oil, the research shows that the essential oils can help to balance the microbiome by knowing intelligently which are good for us and which aren't. So it's not indiscriminately going in there to wipe everything out, which is part of the problem with our current, approach.
With Western medicine, a lot of the medicines that we have, right? They're wiping out the good with the bad.
Exactly. Well, yes. So that's the phenols. And then we have the sesquiterpenes. The sesquiterpenes are like the wise elders. And so sesquiterpenes are going to go in there and really clear out the space and sweep out what we're holding on to that is no longer needed, and helping to really clear and reveal what's necessary, what's of priority to us. And so you can think of sesquiterpenes as really affecting our mind and our brain. And many formulas that are for us to gain clarity, to oxygenate our brains, are full of sesquiterpenes. And sesquiterpenes, essential oils that are rich in sesquiterpenes, are the ones that frankincense, sandalwood, cedarwood. So really clarifying to our thought processes. So then
how interesting, because didn't you refer to it as, oh, sorry. I was going to say you referred to them as ancient elders, right? Is that what you referred to it as, ancient elders? I think that's so beautiful, because when I think of those smells, there's a sense of wisdom and yes. Continue. Sorry. I love that.
Yeah. So this analogy is easy for us to understand outside of the science realm. And so then you go to the monoterpenes, and then again, helping us to remember monoterpenes, M for mother. So we have the maiden, the mother, and the wise elder. So the mother, the monoterpene, comes in at the end and just kind of, it makes sure that everything comes into a wholesome, I suppose, completion, without any judgment, with unconditional love, and just to hold that space for the healing to happen. Part of the emotional wisdom is that we're able to access a lot of these deep-seated emotions with intention. So essential oils work with intention, and yet it is not harsh, and it's not jarring to our system. We start to feel gradually better, but because we're adding our intention in there, we're also aware of the changes that are happening. And we start to notice, wow, if that had happened before I started consciously working with the plants, I would have blown up and reacted. But I'm sensing that I'm actually taking a pause and taking a breath, and I'm responding lovingly and with kindness. So it's kind of magic.
Yeah, it's so funny, because as you're talking, especially when you were initially describing the science behind it, I went back in my head to Jillian, because Jillian was explaining in one of our first episodes about crystals and how they work and their vibrational matches, and how our bodies essentially attuned to that same high vibration. And then you talking about the plants, and then the same thing with, putting our intention with the plants is the same thing that we do with crystals. So it's just so beautiful to think about how nature, no matter which aspect, it all comes together and is all helping. They're all helping us. They're our little allies trying to help us on our journey of life. And I think that's so beautiful. I did have a question, because you were just explaining the phenols and the, I forget the names, but you described them as the maiden, the mother, the wise elder. Now, are these properties in each of the essential oils, or are certain essential oils attributed to each of those? Does that question even make sense? I don't know if I described that properly.
Yes.
Okay.
There are many ways to categorize essential oils. One of them is through the majority of these compounds in each. So as I mentioned, with sesquiterpenes, essential oils high in sesquiterpenes you would find in the ones I mentioned, frankincense, sandalwood, cedarwood. And phenols, you can think of it as a little spicy. So these are the young maidens. And you can find phenols in, say, cinnamon, in oregano.
Okay.
And then the monoterpenes are a little more stable and, loving. You can find monoterpenes in essential oils like marjoram. Marjoram has a really nice balance, actually, of monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes, and phenols. And so it would be a really good oil to use if you, wanted a balance of all of it.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And so one book I really recommend that I love is The Chemistry of Essential Oils Made Simple. And a lot of my learning has been through Dr. David Stewart's thick book.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Yes.
For us reader lovers out there, we'll put a link in the show notes for everybody too.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
So because you were a financial analyst and then you moved on to wanting to save the world, but doing it from a pretty privileged position, how did you then move into this being your calling? I mean, was it literally just you bought something outside of London and you're like, this is it? Or were you searching for healing yourself and then you had a few sessions and it really resonated with you? What was the journey that moved you to really embodying this work?
Well, so underneath all of my career happenings, I was always on the lookout for natural solutions to everyday living. So I've always been an avid label reader. You will see me at grocery stores and reading all the labels, none of the toxins for me. And it got a little tiring. It got to the point where, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, it's kind of a fatigue that is almost to the point of resignation. Like, there's so many toxins out there. I can never defeat it. Why am I even doing this? This is too draining on me. So I was always trying new products, trying new things. Okay, so that's underneath all my career stuff. And then I had children, which magnified that even more, that part of me, like, I'm going to do right. We're going to eat all organic, da. So then when my son now is 21 years old, when he was about 7 or 8, he started, maybe 8 or 9. So he started not wanting to go to school. He would always look for a toilet. He was like, I'm not leaving the house because I don't know if there's going to be a toilet anywhere. So the problem was digestive. And it made me dive deep into the world of nutrition, and along with it, all the emotional questioning of what have I done wrong? I'm the one that, read the labels and I don't have any toxins in the house. I'm feeding him all organic. But then there are deeper layers. So essentially what I found out and what I tried right away was to remove gluten and remove dairy from the house. And that corrected the problem substantially. And because of the years and years of even organic gluten and organic dairy, even trying to keep it clean, there were unprocessed and undigested proteins within our body. And so I took it out for him, took it out for the whole family, but realized I was getting better. My emotional swings were actually calming down, and I was not getting my acne and menstrual disruptions, PMS, all of that. So I would say we got about 75% better, but we were still battling a lot of the microbiome issues. And it got to a different level of diligence and discipline and fatigue. And
yes.
so
I know it well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And what I found, like I said, for me was I had all these health issues that I never addressed. But when it was my children, I went right into action. And now I realized, oh, it's also helping me, right? So anyway, I was big into changing out the school lunch program at his school district because of all my newfound nutrition interest. So I did that. And then my younger son was born, and in between had a lot of miscarriages. And part of that too was, again, the health issues and the emotional impact from that. Long story short, when my younger son was about to turn 4, I was like, well, what should I do now? I've changed the school lunch program. I've done all these things, right? And I asked myself, what is it that I really am interested in outside of work and when I have free time? And what I noticed was I was always pouring through my nutrition books, and mostly on herbs. And so I went back to school. I went back and got my nutrition consulting certificate. And within that program, I dived deeper into herbs, deeper into essential oils, and actually bought a whole bunch of essential oils while I was at that program. And again, it was not working. And then, of course, life takes you along the path. I'm at a school craft fair. My children went to a Waldorf school in San Diego at that time. And my friend was running a booth, and I walked up to her and I go, well, what's the difference between Young Living essential oils and all the other essential oils I've tried? And she tells me about the frequency. She tells me about the Seed to Seal program, about the farms that they run all over the world, and just basically the love and the care towards taking care of Mother Earth. So that was when I decided to try it, and right away, my body responded. So that's when it got me to almost 95%, recovery. And a lot of it, I think, was, again, helping the microbiome and helping the emotions. What I didn't realize was with the acne on my face, I use frankincense and purification, which is a blend that has lemongrass and citronella. I used it on my face because I had acne, and most of the time we start using it for the multitude of physical problems we have. But once I started using it, I noticed I was a nicer mom. I was screaming less. I was not that road rage driver in California that honked at you if you didn't move when the light turned green. I gave you 2 seconds. If you're not moving, I'm honking at you. I tell people that story now and they're like, what? I can't imagine you doing that. But I was, and we all can change. So that's really how it all started. That was 9 years ago that I did start with Young Living Essential Oils, but it was, like I said, he's 21 now. So it was back then that we really started going gluten-free and dairy-free. And of course, meditation and yoga and all of that was sprinkled in there. And yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it all ties in. All these modalities, whatever. And I know I believe you do breath work as well, or no, I can't remember if you had done breath work.
Pranayama?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's, all these different modalities that Jillian and I are bringing to, a little bit of light on with this podcast. There's no one way. These are just different ways to help support us. So
Yes.
it's beautiful. It's like the sense of smell. I think this is amazing because me personally, I've used some essential oils like at night to fall asleep. I'll have a little like lavender oil, or one time, Jillian and I, we go to these very large gem shows, and it's probably the same with Jillian, but whenever we're doing these, we're there for like a week straight of being surrounded by these massive crystals, which is so gorgeous and so beautiful. But you're on this high from all the crystal energy that I was not sleeping at all for days. I was so exhausted because you arrive as soon as the gem show starts. You don't leave till they're kicking you out. You're exhausted, but I couldn't sleep. And the one time I was finally able to sleep is I remember I had lavender essential oil, and I put a couple drops in my water and chugged the whole glass, and I was out and slept all night. So I actually forgot about that story till now. I'm like, I should do I need to do that more often. But yeah, it's good to bring awareness to all the different beautiful nature's healing ways, whether it's, essential oils, crystals, all the things that we can naturally do to help ourselves. So yeah, it's amazing.
I'm
Thank you.
curious,
Yes.
especially with your background. Oh, in nutrition, I just wanted to kind of tie into that. Are there instances where you would recommend essential oils versus herbal teas versus elixirs? Are there different instances in which you'd recommend one versus another?
So, one of the most basic things I realized after I did nutrition school was that my idealistic version of eating well and not taking supplements was basically not realistic in this modern world where so much of what we eat is depleted of minerals and nutrients. And so while I advocate eating really well and drinking lots of herbal teas, there's also supplements that would complement the whole. Now, when I got out of nutrition school and I started really diving deep into what Young Living has to offer, and there were all these supplements with herbs in them. And my question was, well, what makes it different to actually have supplements with herbs and essential oils combined versus just herbs that I had already been taking? And one of the research shows that taking any form of supplement, and I'm sure you've read like consumer reports of how we're, basically drinking our money down the drain because we're not absorbing any of the multivitamins or supplements that we're taking. Well, so the research showed that it was about 20% blood absorbency if you took a supplement without essential oils. And when essential oils were added, essential oils work as a delivery mechanism in our body. So they act as lignans, which are messengers. And so they actually, in a physical way, carry the vitamins and the minerals into our cells. And so the research shows that it actually went up to about close to 80% in absorbency when you add essential oils. And
That's
got me
significant.
really curious. Yes.
Yeah.
It's very significant.
Wow.
And in fact, it's one of those unknown superheroes, but not so unknown because when you look deeper, there are pharmaceutical companies now wanting to patent certain delivery mechanisms using essential oils with their, products. So I love that herbs have this ability to, again, address different parts of our organs and systems. But I also love adding essential oils in them. And so, I advocate taking it all. Now,
got it. Okay. So using them in a combination of each other. Okay.
Yes. And in terms of elixirs, would you, there's so many definitions of elixirs, and I definitely have an elixir that I drink every single day, but maybe give me your definition of an elixir.
probably exactly that. Like instead of an essential oil where you're putting like a drop on yourself, or, you know, if there's like do you use tinctures? I think it was more just coming to an understanding of like, if your client comes to you, or if you have, you know, certain problems that clients are consistently coming to you for, and in which instance you would recommend an essential oil versus maybe some type of tincture versus, oh, try this tea, or again, is it a combination of all three? Kind of that
Yeah. So
idea.
a few different ways I would start, but essentially it would be getting everything to a foundation of health. And what that means is taking a look at what's in your house that has artificial scents. And most of the time, we start with the laundry. And this is an unlikely place to start for your health, and yet the most obvious place. Most of us, again, have that innate attraction to scents. And so we buy all these things that help us smell better. And yet, lo and behold, they are actually doing more harm than good. So these artificial scents that are in our laundry, in our dryer sheets, are permeating our bedrooms in the closet, permeating our bodies as we wear them all day, and permeating our house, because the laundry room just is the olfactory spreader, you know,
Factory overload. Yeah.
olfactory overload. Yes. So lifestyle, it really starts with switching out. They say that the average woman puts on 80 artificial chemicals on their body before they even leave the house in the morning. And it's shocking if you look at your facial products, your body products, your shampoo, all of it has artificial scents. Anything that says natural flavors, natural fragrance, unfortunately, it is a term in which they hide under. Unless it has the Latin name of the plant in which they have the fragrance in, it is almost always unnatural. And in fact, your nose starts to get trained to know what is good for you and what isn't. And how many times I've spoken to people about scent and like, don't talk to me about scents. I can't even walk down the aisle without getting a headache. And I'm like, that is good news. That is good news, because your nose is actually telling you that those are not healthy for you. What I'm talking about is absolutely different than what you find in the grocery store aisle. I'm talking about plant essences that are responsibly and lovingly cultivated, harvested, distilled, and with nothing added and nothing taken away. You cannot create that in a lab. And so that would be the foundation. And then the foundation of our health is nutrition. We cannot function without the minerals, the vitamins. And what I have found is my elixir is an ancestral herb that is now widely available to everyone in the world, you know, which is amazing, is this wolfberry from the high plains in Inner Mongolia. And we call it Ningxia.
Oh, wow.
Red, because this area is called Ningxia. And it has the highest, you know, when we talk about highest, we're talking about weight to weight. And so it's got the highest protein source of any herb. It's got the highest potassium source of any herb. And it is known as an adaptogen because it feeds so many of our different body systems, from our liver to our heart to our eyes. And if we drink that drink once a day, twice a day, we start to feel energy coming back. And so when a client comes with an issue, I wouldn't treat that issue right away. I would ask about their foundational lifestyle first, because anything else is just like putting a Band-Aid on a leaky boat.
100%. I feel like each episode this is reiterated over and over and over. Of starting at not treating the problem. The problem isn't the issue. There's an underlying thing going on. So
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, continue. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and
Yeah.
what we find also with these artificial scents is how it messes with our hormones. And so a lot of emotional issues are from hormonal imbalance. And we're not actually, going in and treating and curing anything. We're asking that person to start to reflect on everything from the meaning of life to the choices they make in their lives. And so I really want to bring this back to the ancient wisdom as women, as priestesses, as goddesses, as holders of feminine knowledge. And working with the Earth Mother is our birthright. And we are part of the Earth Mother. We are part of nature. We're not here to say we are here and plants and crystals are over there. We're saying, let's merge with it. Let's invite the essential oils to become a part of us. As they enter us, we are lovingly and with surrender, opening up ourselves to their medicine, to their intelligence. Just with everything that we eat, we're asking whatever we're eating to become a part of us. And so anyway, as carriers of this medicine, it has been for thousands of years, the shamans of China, known as the Wu, the poems around their dress and their preparation always includes fragrance. The Egyptian priestesses, they understood that fragrance was their connection to the divine. And as we adorn ourselves, anoint ourselves with these sacred oils, we are acknowledging that we are the bridge between heaven and earth. And essential oils are the very manifestation of the alchemy between sun and soil. And so it's not just another tool. That is the language of that is the language that we have created in this patriarchal society. It is a relationship that we cultivate. So it's not about what product do I buy. It's really about what choices do I make, because I buy products anyway.
I'm like raising my hands to the air. Preach, sister, preach. Yes,
Yeah.
100%. This always goes back to self-advocacy. A lot of times we're searching outside ourselves. Why am I not feeling good? Why am I this? Why that? Let me go to the doctor. Let's pause, turn inward, and go back to what are the choices I'm making? What are the choices I'm making that are having these effects? And connecting with Mother Nature and connecting with all these natural ways that we can heal ourselves. We don't need the outside. We can do it ourselves with nature, in conjunction with nature, and not using nature, working in conjunction with it as tools that have been around for millennia. Like our ancestors and ancestors behind us have all used this medicine, and we've got away from that. And now this is the era where we're returning to it. And I think it's so fascinating and so cool because there's so much science behind it. So you're everything you just said right now, I'm like, yes.
I want to give credit to the science, because being humans in this age of technological advance is not about shunning it or saying, looking and seeing all the bad things. It's really about understanding that our ability to tap into what's there has really accelerated our ability to connect with it. So what I'm really saying is, yes, in the Egyptian times, you see them putting the cones on the crown of their head, and these were myrrh resins that melted in the sun's rays, and then they received it, right? And the scent came through. But today we have distillers, and we have precise times and temperature in which we distill it. And some may argue, well, back then they didn't have all these technology. And so how can you say that they were also, what I'm really saying is that we are kind of moving into a much more accessible way of really tapping into this magic. And we are really understanding and knowing that we have the means now as a human race that's advancing technologically and coming back into our hearts. So it's all of it,
It's so cool because, it's basically what our ancestors innately knew. They were doing it anyway, but now we have the science to prove it. Whereas, during the Salem witch trials, people like us were burned for this. Like it was a complete opposite of what was being taught. So it's bad and it's wrong. And now to be in this era where science is proving it all, on top of we're doing what we innately know, but now we have the science behind it as well. And I think that's so cool. Thank you for that.
And not discounting the fact that we were probably much more advanced in earlier civilizations that right now we're not yet acknowledging. So it's not that we're rediscovering it in a way.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. I think there's something to be said for the patriarchal view of science, because when we're thinking about, right, quote unquote, the age of enlightenment, it was really about understanding things, quote unquote, scientifically and understanding why that they're happening. But it was in a way that was removed, right? We are the observers. We are the conquerors. It was very, colonialistic in how science was being applied, as opposed to now, I think we are coming back into using science as a way to show the wisdoms that we already had and being able to understand it, but not in a way that differentiates us from it, that we are still part of it. It is still a part of us. But, it always makes me sad when I think of how much wisdom was lost in such a short amount of time. But, I'm, especially with these kind of conversations that we're having, hopeful that we're, as a planet, as a collective, on our way to rediscovering those. We just really need to listen to the people who actually didn't lose it.
And we all have the memories within us. And so while we are talking about the very basic layers of partnering with essential oils to heal our emotional trauma, we are destined to go beyond that. And beyond that is this space of connection to spirit that is almost attuned to clairvoyance, right? Where you start to notice how connected you are with all, and it goes both ways. This intention, one of the research shows, and we know this with water, we know this with crystal, that you are projecting something into the essential oil, and you measure with megahertz, you measure the frequency, and it goes down. And this was done through Bruce Tainio and his technology. And then as you also project loving thoughts to it, the reading goes up. And just with crystals, you can project love onto it, you can project images onto it, and it starts to show up, right? Or water. So it's a remembrance that we are influencing our own lives. We're influencing the frequency in the space in which we inhabit. And we drop this idea of having to fix other people, or even as a healer, heal other people, because as we hold on and vibrate at our frequency, which is just getting higher and higher and higher if you're on that train, we are making a difference wherever we go.
So true. So true.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. I'm a little curious as to when you're working with clients, are there prevalent concerns that you notice that they're specific, like a lot of your clients tend to show up time and again for the same issue?
Yes, and yes. Ultimately, in many different spiritual teachings and systems, we are in a time of change. In this time of change, we're moving from a frequency of mass consciousness of victimization, victimhood, into a frequency of freedom, of being conscious, of being awake. Now, how you get there from victimhood to freedom has many different, layers of shadows and the gifts you can come into. And now I'm talking from my work as a Gene Keys guide, and I love.
I was about to say, this sounds a lot like Gene Keys.
Yes.
I was like, this sounds like Richard Rudd right here, K55.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And so as a Gene Keys guide, I actually combine using and customizing essential oils for the different shadows we move through. But what I'm getting at here, is that it can show up in many different ways, and yet the fundamental emotions is about being unworthy, unloved, and rejected, abandoned, not truly stepping into the knowing within that we are divine beings and that we are here to express our divinity, our genius, our gifts, right? And what's blocking us from that is the layers and layers of protection we have put around our hearts. And everything we're doing is to create a safe space for the dismantling and the melting of those barriers, and to come into this sense of empowerment that is not going to really judge ourselves. As we judge ourselves, we believe that others are judging us. And the truth is, other people are too self-obsessed to be judging you. Everyone's just busy judging themselves, you know? So a lot of times it's loneliness, it's rejection, it is unworthiness. And it is not, it is believing that we are somehow the victims of life and not stepping into our own empowerment and our divinity.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely would. I am curious too, because Jillian and I, we're both crystal advocates, and we often talk about how your intuition knows when it comes to crystals, which ones you need, whether that's daily, weekly, whatever. You're intuitively drawn to the crystals that end up resonating most with what you're going through currently in your life. So I'm curious if the same applies to our sense of smell and essential oils or herbs. Are the ones that we're more attracted to innately typically the ones that we need?
There are a few different ways
do you tend to
interpret
notice that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So sometimes one essential oil can smell different, even as we're putting intention into it. So the modality in which I teach is releasing emotional patterns with essential oils. And we connect an emotion with an essential oil, take that emotion to the other side, which is the higher frequency of that band. And there is a way out, which is an affirmation. And there's an acupuncture point in which we put it on. One essential oil blend or single, can be for a few different emotions. And the common feedback is that as we're using it for one of the emotions, it smells different as we're using it for the next emotion, which is really curious because, again, it's the intelligence of the essential oil that's addressing the different parts of us. Sometimes when we're using it for one emotion, it smells good. For the other emotion, it doesn't smell good, right? So we have a tendency to label good or bad, like or dislike. And the truth is, if it causes pain or fear, that's when those emotions are ready to be felt and released. And if we stop it right there and say, this is causing me pain, I don't want to go any further, if we're committed to the process, right? Literally going through that pain or that fear is the way out. When we suppress it, it is what leads to blockages. It is what leads to the energy going within to create within, because it has nowhere else to go. And so you can use the analogy for growth within us, any kind of growth within us that has just been suppressed, that energy was not released, right? Or transmuted into something that was creative, of service. So yes, if it doesn't smell good, there's always another oil to use to help you get to the place where you're ready to face what doesn't smell good. What's ironic is once you get there, that smell may no longer affect you because there's so many layers within us that is being addressed at each time. There are also different ways. It's interesting because someone may not like an oil, and we use the blend Harmony on them. We put one hand on the crown, one hand on the heart, and we leave it there for 5 minutes. And then you come back and you smell the oil, and it's like, oh, it smells good now. Because we used Harmony within us, and it did its thing, and now it's different. So the truth is, we also use pendulums, muscle testing, however you like. You can sway, you can use your even truth tingles that you get, right? This intuitive hits. Starting anywhere is going to be beneficial. Does that make sense?
Interesting.
Yeah. Is that how you would recommend beginning to cultivate a deeper relationship with essences, with plant spirits? Is there any other, maybe like a ritual or specific practices that you would recommend to our listeners to start deepening that relationship?
Yes. So because I come from the lens of my teachings, from my ancestral teachings from East Asia, I like to bring it back to our organs and the 5 element system. And so we have general emotions that are stored in our organs. So you may have heard of liver storing anger, the stomach storing worry, the heart storing grief. And so as we address those general ones, it could be a great way to start for someone who doesn't really know where to start. And so on my blog post, I talk about it, but we can start with the 5 different oils where we start to have the ability to feel not loneliness, but one with all, not anger, but laughter. So the other side of anger is laughter. Not worry, but abundance. And not grief, but joy. And not fear, but knowingness. And so those oils are a great way to start. And those are white angelic. Those are mostly blends. And one of the reasons I love blends is because there's synergy in different compounds working together. Where in the quantum world, 1 + 1 is not 2. 1 + 1 is 3.
It's like
right?
making a crystal grid. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And as an aromatherapy coach, I could go and blend things, yes, but I prefer and that's just my own way of really already having those blends for my clients to work through. What I know is already kind of the whole modality was, again, received as a transmission through muscle testing, that the one that I'm talking about, that was created by Dr. Carolyn Mine almost 30 years ago now, that I teach with her. And so with that, those 5 essential oil blends can help with just starting right out. But most people then, again, also just start with, well, I just want to make my house a nice spa-like atmosphere, no artificial fragrances. And as it diffuses, it's also going to work within us, So it's really a matter of preferences.
I feel like the blends too can account for how you said it'll smell one way and they work through one thing, and then the scent smells different, and that plant, how was it worded? But essentially the plant knows. So it's like,
yes,
the essence is, you're trying to work on this aspect, so that's what you're smelling. But as you work through it, then there's this other note that you start to notice more, because then it's that you've already worked through this issue. Now it's this issue that it's focused on. That's so cool.
Yes. Yeah. And I just want to show listeners that this is the book I work with, Releasing Emotional Patterns with Essential Oils. And I send this to any of my customers that purchase the oils, so that they can really practice this at home as a self-guided journey.
Very cool. Yeah, because we wanted to ask that. What advice would you give to someone that's new to using essential oils and elixirs for their wellness, and how can they get started to ensure that they're using them safely and effectively?
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I love being a brand partner with Young Living Essential Oils is that I am the one that's guiding my customers, and I'm guiding them through using it safely, using it effectively, using it with intention, respect, and honor. Just as with any other product you buy from the stores, there is no one to guide you after. You can go online and you can Google and do all these things, but there's so much on the internet that are warnings that are for lower quality essential oils. And so as we use something that is really not in the realm of ordinariness, it is my pleasure to take people's hands and guide them through it. And so I'm available for all my customers. And the model of how I work is that they are able to schedule with me, and they basically ask me any question they want.
Oh, that's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
What are some of the different ways? I know, because you kind of mentioned a few different ones, but like, I always thought it was, you could put it in a diffuser or like in your bath water. I didn't realize you could actually drink it. So
depends on the brand.
Yeah. So I guess that's like, what are, for at least for, I guess 2 questions then. What are the different ways to use it? And then if it's a lower quality brand, which I guess, we're generally not recommending here, but if it is a lower quality brand, because there's only, people have different budgets, what are some safe ways to use those, and maybe other ways we shouldn't use them?
Okay. Well, first of all, just as an
very
aside,
good
yeah. There are essential oils for every budget within Young Living. I just want to mention that. And for instance, lemon essential oil was the first one I ran out of when I bought my starter bundle, and I was surprised. But that's because I used it for so many different things. I used it in my morning water. I used it to wash my vegetables from pesticides. I used it to clean. And that bottle is under $15. Cedarwood is another one that Dr. David Stewart recommends before reading a book that is full of chemistry. He puts a drop on his thumb and sucks it, and it goes right again into our brain to help us understand and have clarity as we read. That is also under $15. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there. It is
Thank you.
truly, again, a choice. of using what's higher quality for your body, I wouldn't recommend putting on your body anything that is not of purity.
Okay.
So there are three major ways. One is inhalation, and inhalation can come from us diffusing it. So we don't recommend burning it. It was very popular in the 80s and 90s to have a burner with water, a candle underneath, and putting essential oils on the top, because the heat actually degrades the molecules. Yeah, and so it's kind of burning your money in a way, right? So a high, what do you call it? High diffusion ionic diffuser is really good. It shoots out these tiny, tiny essential oil molecules into the air. And the beauty of that is your space is energized into and cleansed into a high frequency space. So I always have that going at my house. People walk in, they instantly relax, and they're like, wow, I love this space. They don't even know why.
And your good energy and the crystals.
Yeah. So heat, though, so we don't want to burn it or boil it, but if the water is warm enough to create some steam and we can inhale it, it's really good for our lungs. And so this is really good for when we feel any yuckiness that just needs to be cleansed right through. You can put a towel over your head and have a steaming bowl and put 1 or 2 drops of, eucalyptus or peppermint, any of the oils that just have this opening ability. Rosemary, that's aromatic.
I'm envisioning all this and I'm just like, this sounds so like a spa day. Yes. This sounds amazing.
Yes. It's really fun to have sister spa day events, where we experience it, we do facials for each other, and yeah. So topically is to go back to your very first comment about how many, cell receptor sites we have on our body, millions, but it's all over. So even topically, we are receiving the scents, even if it doesn't go through our olfactory system. So we talk about some spicy oils that we don't want directly on our skin, and we can put it on with a carrier oil. Carrier oils are vegetable oils. You can imagine jojoba oil, argan oil, grapeseed oil, coconut oil, and almond oil, right? These are oils that can help to actually, first of all, allow the essential oil not to evaporate too quickly, and also to slow down the spread into the skin. If anybody spilled any essential oil on themselves, don't panic. Don't use water, because water will actually make it penetrate into the skin much quicker. Use a carrier oil, and the carrier oil will calm it down and will slow down the absorption.
Interesting. Good tip.
Yeah. So there's some essential oils like from citrus fruits, mostly grapefruit, bergamot, lemon. They are cold pressed from the rind of the fruit. As the fruit is on the tree and it's not yet ripe, it has this chemical compound, fucomarine. It actually intensifies the UV rays in order to help that fruit ripen. So if essential oils from citrus oils are used on the skin, they may increase your ability to absorb UV rays, which will lead to tan, sunburn. So we always advise not to use citrus essential oils on skin that will be exposed to the sun for more than 30, 45 minutes, because you will essentially get a sunspot and or even sunburn. Yeah, and if it's diluted in carrier oil and just 1 or 2 drops, it's totally fine, because you do find facial serums with citrus scents, but it's diluted enough that it doesn't cause an issue.
Got it.
Yeah. So another way to topically absorb the essential oils is in a bath. And one of the most common mistakes is people put it directly in the water. And remember what I said, when you put in water, it really, first of all, it doesn't dilute, and it's concentrated in one spot, and it could cause an itch or rash, and it's just not efficient. So always add salts, and sea salt or Epsom salts. Epsom salts have the bonus of magnesium, which helps you to relax even more. And sea salts have the bonus of really clearing negative energy from your body.
So you recommend putting putting the salt in first and then a drop of oil in the water, or you put the drop of oil onto the salt and then the salt in the water?
Drop of oil, not just a drop. I would say 5 to 7 drops, because, a bathtub's pretty big, but you would put that on the salt first, and then into the water. Yeah.
Good to know. This is all stuff I never would have thought of. This is great. Thank you.
One thing I love doing with the salts is, so again, salts are great as scrubs, right? And also as cleansing of energy, low frequency. So I actually, after putting the oils on the salt, I take the salt and I scrub myself. Not too harsh, because you don't want to get too, abrasive. And then I just dip myself into the water.
All these are great ideas. I'm like, when am I going to have time to try?
Yeah, you own time, girl. Yeah. I also like adding baking soda in there. So that's an added detoxification.
And then you can also, if it's of the Young Living, because it's such a high quality, you can also drink them, correct? You can put them in water to drink them.
So as far as I know, Young Living is the only essential oil company that has a separate label for dietary supplements. And so you'll see it actually says Vitality Oil. Now, we have lavender vitality and lavender that's labeled for aromatic and topical use. This is all FDA requirements. We cannot label the aromatic and topical use also as a dietary supplement. So we had to come up with a way of telling our consumers that you can actually take this internally. Now, they're exactly the same oil. So my my choice is to just get the bigger 15 ml bottle, because it's more cost effective per drop, right, than the 5 ml, which is the Vitality. But for consumers that are wondering, it's better to get the Vitality oil and take it internally. We like to take it in capsules. We put it in tea, water. Like I said, lemon essential oil in water every morning. Here's a quick tidbit about lemon. You've probably heard, this health tip: drink lemon water in the mornings and your whole body is alkalized, and that's a good thing. Now, then people found out, it's eating into my enamel because it's so acidic. But it does turn alkaline in your body, granted. So then people said, well, use straws so you don't really put it on your teeth. A good nutritionist will also say, don't forget to put the rind in there. So you grate some rind in with the lemon juice. Now, the rind is where the real medicine is, because that's where a lot of the antioxidants and the good, what it does is it supports your liver to detox. And so it helps your glutathione levels. And anyway, it's all in a rind. So the essential oil comes from the rind. So just putting a drop of essential oil in your water solves all the problems, because now your enamel's not gonna degrade, and you don't have to go find a lemon, an organic lemon. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. Sold. No. So what does a typical session with you look like? Because I know you offer several different modalities and ways to work with your clients. What are the different modalities that you offer in your practice? And yeah, what would a typical session for, if our listeners are interested in working with you, what would it look like?
Mm-hmm. So it's really always customized to the client's situation in life. And so one session today may be different in the year, right? Depending on where they are
Right.
in the phases of their lives. If someone was coming in for emotional issues, we literally would go through this book and find an emotion that we would work with. And if we wanted to do chakra clearing, we would go through all the different chakras and have and work on the emotions that are coming out from expressing from those chakras. If we want to work on say, any emotion, fear of abandonment or anger, we would then work through that. Now, what that does is we put the essential oil on our palm, usually our left palm, because it's the receiving side of the body. We circle it around 3 times clockwise. We put it on the crown of our head, the back of our neck. So these are our emotional points and our filter points. And then we put it on the point in our body, which is the acupuncture point, and then we inhale it. So we call this a scent tent. And we're inhaling it. What we're doing is we're teaching our body how easy it is to choose to feel one emotion and then the other. So we start first with the emotion that is painful. So in this case, it could be anger. We're going to inhale anger 3 times. Every time we exhale, we let it go. We don't hold on to it. We don't hold on to any stories around it, but we allow that feeling to be inside us, to truly immerse ourselves in it. Notice where it shows up. So 3 times for that. We move to the other side. And in this case, the other side of anger is laughter. So anger as a emotional outburst, laughter as an emotional outburst, right? So then we are imagining laughter. We're allowing it to fill us again 3 times. And every time we exhale, we also let that go because we don't hold on even to anything that's good or what we perceive to be good. And then the next 3 times, so there are 9 breaths total. The next 3 times, we're going to say the affirmation. The affirmation in this case is, my direction is clear. So whatever that means for you, because anger is always a wise message to yourself that something is not right for you. So my direction is clear. Where does that direction go? You have to figure it out for yourself. But you're inhaling the essential oil. You are expressing laughter within yourself. You are telling yourself, my direction is clear. And when that is done, there may be some, in the beginning, there's some conversation. At the end, there's some conversation. And that in itself could last 45 minutes. We could go through different emotions. And usually there's an insight. There's multiple insights. There's also awareness of feeling lighter, feeling less triggered, and less charged. And over time, it leads to a different spiral of evolution.
Beautiful. So you typically will incorporate these, the essential oils in each healing session.
Yes. And so some of the healing sessions may not be these are for people who are ready to address their emotional issues. There are many people who aren't, and they just want to come and relax. They want to come and say, heal me, and while I don't advocate that, I'm also going to allow space for them to drop into their stress-free state and to let their body do its healing, right? So the raindrop technique is one where the client lays on the massage table. We anoint them basically with essential oils on their feet and on their spine in a succession of essential oils that are mostly like herbs you would find in your kitchen: oregano, basil, marjoram, thyme. These are really powerful essential oils that can enter our body and really support our ability to have a balanced microbiome and ease our emotional trauma issues. They lay on the table for about an hour. And at the end of it, I put a hot towel in the back and I play some sound bowls, crystal sound bowls, and Tibetan singing bowls. This is mostly only for in-person events. And I also offer it at my retreats and workshops.
Okay.
Yeah, not workshops, mostly at retreats, because at retreats, we usually have like afternoons off where they can choose to have personal integration sessions from each each facilitator.
And for our listeners, can you say where you're located about-ish so that they are aware? Because we have listeners all over the world now. So just in case they're listening in from where you're located.
Mm-hmm. So I'm on the island of Oahu in Hawaii. And if, you know, I've also had people where they've come for a vacation and they take that opportunity to come for a session. Yes.
Yeah.
So beautiful. It's not just for
and
people
then
who
you
live
do
here.
Virtual as well, right?
I do virtual. And I was going to go back to when you were saying about that intuition of knowing which oil or which crystal. I really like the idea of divination with oracle cards because our higher self does know. Our conscious mind gets in the way. And so when we're allowed to pick a card or even to give permission to someone else to pick a card for you, I work a lot with Elena Fairchild's crystal mandala cards. And so those crystals are what shows up. And in virtual sessions, we can do many different things. We can do divination sessions. We can do, again, coaching. And if they have the essential oils on hand, we can go through it together. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, awesome. So how do our listeners get in touch with you then if they would like to have a session with you? What are the ways they can get in touch with you?
My website is LeeYenAnderson.com. And I respond to every message that comes through, unless there's spam, which I can detect. I have an internal spam detector or scam detector. Yeah. Funny things come through. You know what? Yeah. So get in touch with me on my website. I can also take bookings right there. And I'm also on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm pretty much accessible. And the beauty of it is, as I am accessible, I also have found that the most beautiful clients come through because maybe it's just that frequency I'm putting out there. But yeah, it's been a beautiful way of getting to know people of the same resonance throughout the world. Yeah.
Beautiful.
You mentioned retreats. Do you have any retreats coming up?
I do. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
I have a retreat in September 21st through 28th in the equinox season and full moon season in Mount Shasta. So Mount Shasta is a beautiful, sacred, energetic vortex in Northern California. We will be gathering in this 10-acre private property. We will be having different master plant teachers present in 2 ceremonies, in the equinox and the full moon. And we will also be kind of connecting with our star family and communicating with the healing waters that are there as well. So it's going to be magical and beautiful.
Wow.
Yay, thanks for sharing. So if you're listening.
And the information for that is also on your website, just to confirm.
It is, and it's under retreats, and you just see Mount Shasta.
Okay, perfect. That sounds really cool. So, this is the part we often will do like crystal recommendations. And I feel like with this one, there really aren't specific recommendations to go along with like
sense of smell
using essences. So, what I would say instead is that it really would depend on the intention, that there are crystal, let's say, allies for all of the different essential oils I think like the most obvious would be like rose quartz and rose, for instance. But I think that sounds like a really powerful pairing, being able to, especially if you are familiar with crystals and you want to explore this, being able to utilize that. I also will say, I know there are quite a few people who utilize them when crystal gridding as well. Well, they'll take essential oils and they will anoint the crystals themselves with corresponding oils. The only thing to keep in mind is which stones you're using for that. I would really stick to a quartz-based stone if you're doing that, or at least one that's at least 6 on the Mohs hardness scale or up. Softer stones may absorb the oil, and you don't want that happening. But I think it seems like a really interesting and resonant way to mix these two different forms of earth connecting modalities.
And I will say, if you are having trouble figuring out which stones, LeeYen has a beautiful encyclopedia on her page as far as which stones are good for what. And then I also have a encyclopedia on my website, irisunique.com, of the formations, because I did write out a list. Like if you're, when it comes to romantic love, have a little crystal heart nearby, or a sphere of rose quartz emanating that, that vibe. If you want to bring in money, the abundance formation. So check out both of our encyclopedias. We literally built them for you guys. So use them. They're a free tool if you need help figuring out which crystals to pair with each. And then LeeYen, you were going to say something.
Well, it would be an interesting conversation to have, but we definitely have pairings of essential oils and crystals. In fact, we have rollers that we make with crystals in it to accentuate the essential oils, and for sure, LeeYen, making sure that the essential oils are not the ones that are too soft, if with that term. We also have certain card decks that have been produced by different Young Living members, and they are oracle cards where you pick, and it's a crystal and the essential oils to pair with it, with that intention.
Wow. Great.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So we do a lot of crystals and essential oils as a theme for a class.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, LeeYen. This has been so insightful, so fun learning so many things that I had no idea about. So this is really exciting for me, and I'm sure our listeners. I do have an off the cuff thing that I've been kind of implementing on our episodes with guest speakers. I want to ask you that if you had the opportunity to share one message, and it doesn't have to deal with our topic today, any message at all, if you had the opportunity to have a platform where you can talk to millions of people all over the planet, what one message would you want to share?
I would share the message of the idea that you are a divine being that is here to remember, to love, and to be loved, and to experience this lifetime as an opportunity to spread love.
Beautiful.
Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for being open to share. Well, thank you for being here. To our listeners, thank you for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you that is supporting us by listening and just enjoying what we bring, what we're offering, as far as just good vibes. Happiness. We're trying to help uplift. The expansion. Just uplift, inspire. And so thank you for being here and for taking the time. And LeeYen, thank you for being here and taking the time to share. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're both creating a beautiful platform, and I'm so honored to contribute to it. And thank you for your work in this world, and to your listeners for making it happen.
Thanks so much.
All right, friends, we hope that you continue along this podcast journey with us. If you're already listening, you've already found us, but just in case, you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Play, YouTube, and at crystallizingconversations.com. We are also on TikTok and Instagram. You can follow us there. And we would, of course, as always, love to know your thoughts and impressions if there's any topics that really resonated with you, or if there's any topics or crystal questions that you would like us to explore on this podcast. Please be sure to let us know. And with that, I think we'll call it an episode. So take care, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.